Have you ever wondered how websites remember your actions across multiple pages? Well, that's where session tracking comes into play. It is an essential mechanism in web development that keeps track of user interactions across multiple requests. Imagine it as a conversation, and just like in a real conversation, it's crucial to remember what has been said. In the context of web development, session tracking allows the server to associate a series of requests from the same client as a single conversation or session. This process enables the storage and retrieval of user-specific data, allowing websites to provide a more personalized and interactive user experience. Without session tracking, each user interaction would be treated as an isolated event, making it impossible for web applications to maintain user state and deliver a seamless browsing experience. Now, let's delve into the various techniques used in session tracking. Most of us have heard about cookies, but do we know how they work in session tracking? Cookies are like tiny digital breadcrumbs that we leave behind as we navigate the web. They are small pieces of data stored by our browser and sent with every request to the server. These little data crumbs play a crucial role in session tracking by storing a unique identifier known as a session ID. Imagine you're at a bustling party. There are lots of people, lots of interactions, and it's hard to keep track of everything. Now imagine if you had a special badge that you could assign to each guest. This badge would not only identify them, but also keep track of their interactions throughout the party. That's essentially what a cookie does in a web session. It's like a special badge that helps the server recognize and remember each client. Creating a session cookie is a straightforward process. In Java, you could simply create a new cookie object and add it to the response. For instance, you could create a cookie named SessionId and assign it a value like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Retrieving the session cookie is equally simple. The server can request all cookies from the client's browser. It then sifts through these cookies to find the one with the session ID. Once it has this ID, the server can pull up all the stored data related to that session. But what happens if the client's browser doesn't support cookies, or if they're disabled? Well, that's where other methods of session tracking come into play. Cookies are undoubtedly popular and widely used. They are easy to implement and work well in most scenarios. However, they do rely on being supported and enabled in the client's browser. If this isn't the case, web developers need to have a plan B. So the next time you're surfing the web, remember the humble cookie. It's working diligently behind the scenes, helping to create a seamless and personalized browsing experience. Cookies are popular, but what if they are disabled or not supported? Let's explore another method. URL rewriting is another technique used when cookies are not an option. It's a method that gets around the limitations of cookieless environments by incorporating the session ID directly into the URL. You might be wondering, how does this work? Let me explain. Imagine a scenario where a user is navigating through your website. Each time they click a link to a new page, the server loses track of who they are. That's where URL rewriting comes into play. By appending the session ID to each URL, the server can keep track of the user's session as they navigate from page to page. It's like leaving a breadcrumb trail through a forest. Each breadcrumb, or in this case URL, is unique to the user's session. So even if they wander off the beaten path, the server can still follow their trail and keep track of their session. Now let's talk about how you can append a session ID to a URL. In Java, the HTTP servlet response object provides the encode URL method for this purpose. Here's a quick demonstration of how it works. In this line of code, we're taking the URL of a page on our website and appending the session ID to it. The result is a URL that looks something like this. And there you have it. That's URL rewriting in a nutshell. It's a nifty trick that can help you maintain a user's session when cookies aren't available. However, remember that URL rewriting is not without its drawbacks. It can lead to URL pollution, making URLs longer and less readable. Also, if a user bookmarks a URL with a session ID, it could lead to unexpected behavior when they return to it later. URL rewriting is effective, but there are other methods to consider, like hidden form fields. So stay tuned as we dive into these other session tracking techniques in the next part of this series. Hidden form fields offer another way to track sessions, especially in specific scenarios. Now let's dive into the realm of hidden form fields. These are a bit of a hidden gem, no pun intended, when it comes to session tracking. They function by storing session IDs in HTML forms. So, when the user submits a form, the session ID tucked away in the hidden field is sent along with the form data to the server. This allows the server to identify the session associated with the form submission. You might wonder, how does one add a hidden form field? Well, it's quite straightforward. In your HTML form, you simply include an input field of type hidden. This field holds the session ID as its value. It's called a hidden field because it's not visible to the user on the web page. However, its value gets sent to the server when the form is submitted. Here's a quick example. Suppose you're adding a hidden form field to store a session ID of 123456789. The HTML code would look like this. Input type equals hidden, name equals session ID, value equals 123456789. This method of session tracking is particularly useful in scenarios where cookies and URL rewriting are not feasible. For instance, with legacy systems or single-page applications, hidden form fields can be a viable solution. They help maintain the user state across multiple requests without relying on cookies or modifying URLs. However, keep in mind that while hidden form fields are handy, they are not a one-size-fits-all solution. They work best in specific situations and when used in conjunction with other session tracking methods. While hidden fields are useful, there's another method that provides a server-side solution. HTTP Session Object. Opening. The HTTP Session Object is a powerful tool for session tracking in Java. When it comes to session tracking, the HTTP Session Object is a heavyweight. It's a part of the Servlet API in Java, providing an efficient way to store session-specific data on the server. Unlike other methods that rely on the client to store session identifiers, HTTP Session maintains the session state on the server side, making it a more secure option. The HTTP Session Object works seamlessly behind the scenes, using cookies or URL rewriting to track sessions. The beauty of this is that it abstracts away these details, allowing developers to focus on storing and retrieving session data rather than the complexities of session tracking. Creating an HTTP Session Object is a straightforward process. When a client makes a request, you can retrieve the current session or create a new one using the request.getSession method. This method returns the current session associated with the client, or if the session does not exist, it creates a new one. Once you have the session, you can store user-specific data using the session.setAttribute method. For instance, you could store a username like so: session.setAttribute username, John_Doe. This data is then available across multiple requests during the user's session. Retrieving session data is just as simple. By using the session.getAttribute method, you can access the data stored in the session. For example, to retrieve the username stored earlier, you would use string username equals sign, string, session.getAttribute, username. It's important to note that while HTTP Session is powerful and secure, it's not always the best fit for every scenario. For instance, it might not be the best choice if your application needs to scale across multiple servers, as it can add complexity to maintain session consistency. Closing. Choosing the right method depends on your specific requirements and constraints. Remember, the goal is to create a seamless and secure user experience, and the HTTP Session Object is one of many tools at your disposal to achieve just that. Following best practices can help you implement session tracking effectively. Let's recap. Session tracking allows web developers to maintain user interactions across multiple requests. It involves methods such as cookies, URL rewriting, hidden form fields, and HTTP session objects. Now, onto best practices. It's crucial to use HTTPS to secure session data during transmission. This ensures that your user's data remains safe. Also, remember to store only minimal information in session attributes. This reduces overhead and improves performance. Furthermore, remember to invalidate sessions after a certain period of inactivity. This practice helps to mitigate the risks of session hijacking. Lastly, always have appropriate session management strategies in place to handle scalability and performance requirements. With these practices in mind, you can create a more secure and efficient environment for session tracking. By understanding and implementing session tracking effectively, developers can create more robust and interactive web applications.